Hello everybody, this is Ashley Schmidt, and I wanted to give you some more Service Academy application tips. Alright, so this part of the application we're going to be talking about really briefly DoDMER and nominations. If you haven't seen the other pieces of the application, go and check out my YouTube channel for the playlist on nomination or application tips. I also have a nomination playlist, and we'll talk about that you can go and get more tips specifically about the interviews. All right, so moving on. I am not a doctor, so the DoDMER section will be very, very simple. Complete your application early. Your application is actually what triggers the DoDMER. So what the DoDMER is that's the medical exam to see if you are physically fit to be able to be a part of the military. Obviously, the military is very rigorous, so they want to make sure you're healthy and you don't have any problems or things that they see in the future that might be a problem. So the DoDMER is that exam. The academy pays for that. You do not have to, but since it does have a cost, it won't open until you finish a certain amount of your application. In the case of ROTC, you have to finish the entire application before they'll do the DoDMER. And that's kind of true. Various academies have different criteria for opening up the DoDMER for you, but the best way to get the DoDMER to open is to complete your application and continually submit things so that you can get that opened up early, especially if you have anything interesting in your medical history. If you've had a concussion, even if you've broken your arm, it may cause questions, and questions take forever. DoDMER is not a quick moving system. It is a very slow system. So you want to be able to turn in your application early so that if you have questions, or the doctors have questions at DoDMER, that they can you have time to complete that. So my best advice is complete your application early. All right, moving on, let's talk about nominations. Okay, you can check out my YouTube playlist on nomination interview tips so that, once you get to that interview point, I have a whole playlist going through kind of tips and tricks. They are definitely helpful. All right, so your nomination sources are your 2 senators, congressmen. There's a presidential nomination, and there's also special nominations like honors JROTC, presidential, if your parents were POWs or you have active duty parents. There's various other ones. Generally, though, most students only really can do the 2 senators, 1 congressman, and the vice presidential. The vice presidential, currently as of this recording, is something that you do through the specific academy that you were applying to. There's usually a question that says, do you want to use the vice presidential nomination? Sometimes it asks you to do an essay or fill out a form. Whatever the directions are, follow those directions and do that is necessary. Okay, so that's the VP is done through the academy. The special nominations, it depends. Like honor JROTC, that's something you work with your honor, and it has to be an honor JROTC squadron. The presidential, there's various things. Check the specific academy for what they want and require. POW, the same. So if you think you're a special nomination case, like research what those are and do research. But those are out there, but typically most students are 2 senators and 1 congressman and the vice presidential. All right, so we're going to talk about nomination basics. You need a nomination to go to an academy. Without one, you will not get an appointment. So you have to have a nomination. So don't put the nomination package off. Without it, you are out of luck. So you need a nomination to that specific academy. So if you want to go to Navy or West Point, you need to get 1 nomination for each to be able to get an appointment. So the nomination is a nomination to the Naval Academy, a nomination to West Point. So you would have to actually technically have 2 nominations, but it was 1 to each specific academy. The nomination is specific to the academy. Okay, so let's talk about your sources. Your congressmen and senators, like I said, are your most likely sources of nomination. Your congressman is what is considered your best and least competitive nomination slate. because your congressman, you're only competing against the kids within your congressional district, whereas the senators, you're competing with kids across the entire state. So that is going to be a much more competitive field than your congressman is, right? If you're competing against kids all over the state versus just your area, you can see why that would be harder for your state. Now, each congressional source, each nomination source has 10 nominations to each academy. And I know you may have heard there's exceptions. It's kind of confusing, but generally just assume that that particular source has 10 per academy. So they'll have 10 to USAFA, 10 to Navy, 10 to Merchant Marine Academy, 10 to Air Force. Okay, so that's kind of how that sits. They've got 10 to each, so you're not just competing for all the academies between 10. You're actually competing generally 40. Like I said, there are some exceptions, and if your congressman, senator tells you, the staffers tell you, oh, we have 20 for USAFA this year, that's great. But just assume there's 10, because that's kind of what it is normally. All right, now, the next question everyone asks is, if you get more than one to a single academy, is that good? Does that mean you'll get in? It's not a bad thing. So if you get your senator nominates you to Air Force and your congressman nominates you to Air Force, does that mean you're going to get in? No, it doesn't really improve your overall chances, but what it does say that you're competitive, right? If two sources, your senator and your congressman, thought you were competitive for the academy, then you're a competitive candidate. So it's a good thing. It's like a good indicator, but does it mean you'll get in? No. So it doesn't improve things, and it's not a bad thing. It just kind of says warm, fuzzy things about you. So don't get like too excited if you get nominations to like all the academies and you get 2 of them. That's a good thing. It's like a good indicator, right? But that doesn't mean you're going to get in. Okay. Now, nominations. So look and see if your nomination source has an academy day, night, event. They call them all sorts of things. They call them nights, events, whatever. But look and see if that source, go to your congressman, senator's webpage, and then generally it's under constituent services. Sometimes it's under, services. Sometimes there's actually one with education and it's under academy appointment or academy nominations. Just look around and see where it is. But there is always a section on everyone's senator or congressman's webpage that gives the information. So go to that webpage, look it up, and see if they have any sources where you can go and ask questions. Or maybe they'll have, videos or virtual events or whatever they're going to have. But go and check to see if they have anything. If you can, and dress nicely, okay? Be the kid in the suit and tie, or at least the tie, or the girl in the, conservative dress or slacks or, appropriate wear, and be the one that stands out. Because if you spent the effort and time to show up and dress nicely, they'll notice, okay? You don't want to be the kid in your, basketball sneakers, just coming from practice. And it's fine if you just came from practice, take a 2-minute shower, throw on some good clothes, and, appear nice. Don't just slump in there. Look nice, look professional. All right, go and meet the staffers, the ALO, the blue and gold officer or officers, or whoever they have, field officers, whoever they have there. Go and meet and talk, ask questions, listen, take notes, and always, always, always follow directions. If they have an event, sometimes I have heard events, they'll say like, oh, we would really like when you turn in your resume to have it be a 1-page resume. Well, the only way you're going to find that out is through the academy event. Sometimes they give you, even though it doesn't say in the directions that are online, sometimes at those events, they actually give you some extra directions or guidance or kind of hints or tips or tricks for their particular slate. So if you go, write down what they say, take notes, and follow those directions. You spent the time to go there, so make sure you follow whatever directions they give you. All right, find the due date for all your nomination sources. If you look it up early. Now, you may be really early and you're seeing last year's, because like they update their website, you know, once a year or so, but you might be early, and so you might see last year's date. So let's say last year's date says September 20th or something like that. Then you can make a decent guess that it'll be September 20th for your year. Now, you always want to go back and double check that and make sure, but that at least gives you an idea. Nominations tend to be due September, October, and November. A few have December dates, but generally it's that September, October. Quite a few are due in the October timeframe. But make sure you check what the previous years were if it doesn't say this year's, because that'll at least give you an idea. You always want to go back and make sure and everything like that, but at least you can kind of put that on the calendar so you kind of are aware of it. And next, follow directions. I know I put this in big bold letters, but I can't tell you how many students just do not follow directions. They just totally ignore the directions and do their own thing. If it says 1-page resume, they put 2 pages, or they think, oh I'm special. Okay. The thing about the military is it's all about following directions, and if they feel that you can't follow the very clear directions they put out, if they said a 500-word or less essay, they mean 500 words or less. They don't mean 501. You are not that special to them, okay? You might be very special to your parents, and I'm sure you are, but to these people, you are not that special. You need to follow whatever directions they give you. And please, please, please spell check and grammar check things. You can see here, I just noticed I have 1 extra L. See, I should have spell checked this. Don't be like me. Spell check things. All right, now turn your package in early. I'm not saying you have to turn it in a month early, but don't be waiting until like it's due at 4 o'clock to their office and you're driving up at 3:55. Okay, don't be that kid. Turn your package in a few days, a week, whatever, but turn it in early. Waiting to see, and then after you've done that, you've turned your package in, you just got to wait and see if you get an interview. Sometimes they interview everyone, sometimes they tell you if they're going to interview you, but either way, if you get an interview, that's at least a good sign that you're on the next step to getting your nomination. Some sources don't have interviews at all. So if you're, especially senators, they sometimes don't because it's all over the state and they don't want to have kids drive, or they'll do a virtual interview. Sometimes they do that as well. But if it doesn't have an interview, like in the directions when you get on their website and it says we don't do interviews, then they don't do interviews. But most sources do tend to do interviews, and they kind of are selective. They pick the kids they think are the most competitive to interview. So just wait and, follow whatever directions you're given. And then if you get an interview, great. Go ahead and check out my playlist on YouTube about nomination interview tips so that you can kind of get some more tips on that. And I hope this video was really helpful for you, and it makes your dreams come true of being in a service academy. Thanks so much. Want to impress academy admissions? Want to get that nomination? Then this is the workbook for you. Grab your step-by-step guide on Amazon today. Use the link below or search on Amazon for Service Academy Admissions.